In a very real sense, Donald Trump did this to himself. And I don't even mean that he could have not stolen the classified documents, or after stealing them, he could have just given them back necessarily. All that is true. All of that makes this a massive legal own goal for Trump. But no, I mean something beyond that, because even ignoring all of that, he had some potential get out of jail free cards, and I use that almost literally in this case, potentially, that he chose not to use. And the reason he chose not to use it is because his brain is fundamentally broken by his own exaggerated sense of his own intelligence and entitlement, his need to feel like the big guy and the alpha male, and his complete lack of ability to tell who he should trust and who he should not. So buckle up, because we're gonna talk about one way that he might have been able to avoid this whole thing. And that happened back in the fall of 2022. So we're talking post-raid. We've already got the documents have been recovered by the FBI, and the legal process has begun. So the former president's team, he was told by one of his new attorneys at that point, could try to arrange a settlement with the Justice Department. Now, the lawyer in question here is Christopher Kise, who's actually still a figure in the Trump legal team, is one of the few that's made it through to this point. He was actually around during the arraignment. So he wanted to quietly approach the DOJ to see if he could negotiate a settlement that would preclude charges, hoping that Attorney General Merrick Garland and the department would want an exit ramp to avoid prosecuting a former president, let alone prosecuting someone who will very soon be a candidate for president. Kise would hopefully, quote, take the temperature down, he told others, by promising a professional approach and the return of all the documents. But as you probably already well know, Trump was not interested in either of those things, being professional or giving back my documents. He didn't want to do that stuff. So Trump wasn't interested in listening to Kise or other lawyers who also, so he didn't listen to them. Instead, he listened to some who are urging a more pugilistic approach. As a result of that, Kise never approached the prosecutors, according to 3 different people. Now, it's pretty easy to figure out why some were telling him he should put up his dukes and fight. It's because it's very easy to convince him to do that. And if you want to stay in his inner circle, tell him what he wants to believe. That's what these bubbles are all about. It backfired though, because within a couple of months, we had a special counsel, Jack Smith, if that's his real name. And now, of course, Trump has been arrested and we're off into the legal process. But there's actually more details that I think make it pretty amazing. I wanna just flesh it out a little bit. So this was, according to sources, one of many opportunities where friends, advisors, and employees all tried to save Donald Trump from himself. 7 advisors with knowledge of the probe indicate that he misled his own advisors, seeming to believe they're not on his side, so he's just gonna lie to them. He told them that boxes at that point contained only newspaper clippings and clothes. This is after he had returned some, but not all of them. He repeatedly refused to give the documents back, even when some of his longest serving advisors warned him of his legal peril and flew to Mar-a-Lago specifically just to beg him to return the documents. So then he returns some of them. He goes to his advisors. He lies to them. He tells them, I sent them all back in so that they will put out like a press release saying that this thing is done. He made liars of them when they're just trying to save him from jail. He makes them out as liars. Later, facing a subpoena, he worked quietly with an aide, as you now know, Walt Nauta, to move boxes without telling his own lawyers, meaning that when they then went to the court and attested all the documents being returned, they were branded as liars too. So he's not listening to them, and he's utterly legally screwing them over time after time after time. One person said it was a totally unforced error. We didn't have to be here. There's a layer of this that I think makes it even funnier, but I want to give you a chance, Viviana, to jump in. This is the first that we've spoken since we found out about the charges and all that. What do you make of the situation we're in, as well as how we got there?
I'm fully shocked because if we go back months, you and I spoke about whether or not there'd be charges filed, and I did not think that there would be any charges filed. And I think it's exactly the reason he was charged is exactly what you just said. I knew they were gonna give him chances to fix it. I knew they were gonna give him chances to be like, oh, I just accidentally put 50,000 boxes in my bathroom. And he didn't jump at the chance because of that toxic masculinity or extreme narcissism. I'm not a therapist, but he definitely likes to be right, and he thinks that he's above the law. Now, anyone who's ever had any dealings with Trump for 30 plus years knows that this is how he is. This is how he does business. He lies. He corrals you into the lie. He gets you in trouble. So anybody who decides to be one of his cronies right now just knows that they're not really going to have a very long shelf life, because he's going to use them as cannon fodder, and that's exactly what he's done. It's comical. It's sad. It's embarrassing for our country. It's like no other country has really commented on it, because it's kind of like a Saturday cartoon comic strip or something. It's a joke, and it's scary. Really, what is in these boxes, and how dangerous is that for our country's security at this point? You know, you have the GOP so worried about national security. Here we have nuke information, all kinds of classified secret stuff that now is just sitting on the. Sorry.
Yeah, that was a colloquial term. And anyway, so I'm glad, by the way, that you mentioned that we really I hadn't noticed it. We haven't really heard anything from anybody about this, right? I'm not saying that they haven't. A word. Yeah, like even like Putin's not talking about it. Duterte's not talking about it. Bolsonaro's not tweeting him something nice. That is weird. One would think that a former president being charged with crimes would elicit some reaction. And I'm sure, by the way, that it has amongst many of them, but they're not being public with it.
They're talking for sure. And they might have the information. I mean, they're obviously just kind of playing their cards close to their chest to see who the GOP nominee is. If it is Trump, they don't want to come out and blast him now. So everyone's kind of just trying to play the game, which is, sad. Going back, we'll talk about it when we talk about cults.
Yeah, 100%. We're getting there. We're getting there. So why did Trump decide to fight rather than comply? If Christopher Kise comes to him and tells him, I think that we should go do some sort of deal. It's pretty late in the process. We've defied the grand jury subpoena for a long time, but I think that if we go and we say we're gonna be professional, we're gonna do a comprehensive investigation. In fact, maybe you can bring some agents to search, not like a raid. You're not busting down the door, it's all private, but you can look and we'll give back all the documents. That almost certainly would have saved him. Not necessarily, but we know Merrick Garland. We know how gun shy he is. We know how much Joe Biden wants to avoid, the image of this being a partisan thing. So I think there's a good chance they would have taken that exit ramp, but they didn't.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.